So the topic of the R&D office hours today is on our new operator sets feature. This is slated to be live in late Q3, possibly early Q4. Right now, the timeline is basically at the end of September, but just to give us some time, some leeway, possibly expect it early Q4. You can find the feature being developed in the core repo. The PR is 607. We can share out links after the call. And then the documentation on the feature is in PR 655, which we can also share out after the call. I believe that Nima might have linked it in the message initially. But if you guys want to take some time after in order to get yourselves up to speed with the more technical details, you can check those links out afterward. The agenda that we're going to talk about is basically what are we trying to solve with the feature, go over what is included in the feature, design, and kind of like our higher level roadmap for why we felt this was important to ship. So basically, operator sets, they're going to be groupings of operators within your AVS. This will give you control over what strategies are associated with an operator set, and then also how you reward and distribute rewards to these groups of operators. And so basically our initial feature, we didn't have much flexibility in how you rewarded your operators in your AVS. And so this is, the main goal is to enable more flexibility in how you manage your operators. So you can split them up based on task-specific work, or you can break them up by the tokens that they have at stake. And then you can reward kind of based on those criteria. And then this is also in preparation for our slashing release. So yeah, the core features of this upcoming release, basically there's two main places that changes are happening. Basically, the AVS directory is where operator registration was tracked previously. And so now this is basically just getting updated to track operator set registration. And so there's new functions that are similar to the old ones, but there's a new parameter for the operator sets that the operator is being registered and deregistered for. And as I mentioned before, there's going to be a rewards component to this. So there's now there's two new functions in the rewards coordinator, which will allow you to basically reward based on an operator set. And then operators can configure their commissions based on the operator set. And so just to note, these are additional functions. So we are keeping the old functions around for the time being. So this won't be a breaking change. It's something that AVSs can opt into if they feel that the features are like useful for them. And so yeah, this is a nod to Scott's last presentation, but iteration is key at EigenLayer. And so we're not trying to solve everything all at once, and we're trying to iteratively deliver the features that AVSs want and operators want, and basically the ecosystem needs. So just drilling down into the details a little bit, what is an operator set? So previously, when an operator was registered within EigenLayer, they were basically registered to an AVS. So now when you register, there's a UN32 value that is a unique identifier for the operator set that operator is in for that AVS. Some of the API, it should look very similar to what currently exists, but basically there's an event for when you create an operator set now, events for when you register and deregister from an operator set. And then this metadata is actually going to be the same, but there's a talking point on it afterward for some off-chain things that we would want to see. So yeah, how do you call this and use it? Basically, this is a one-way function. So once you migrate to operator sets from the previous registration functions, you can no longer use the old registration functions. So we have an explicit function where you can signal that you are essentially moving forward and becoming an operator set AVS. This will block the old functions from being called, and will allow you to basically create operator sets. And so you as an AVS will specify which operator sets and IDs are valid for your AVS. And then similarly to the old API, you had a register and deregister function. Now you just have a register from operator set, or register to operator sets, and deregister from operator sets, where you specify the operator set IDs in addition to the operator you're registering. So not much has changed there. And I kind of hinted to some of these, but basically for this release, you guys will need to be aware that once you migrate to using operator sets, you can't go back. The M2 base registration functions and deregister functions will be basically blocked and will revert if you try to call them. Operators can unilaterally deregister themselves from operator sets. Basically, there is a new entry point for operators where they can forcibly deregister themselves from an operator set if they want to leave, so they can't be held hostage in an AVS potentially. And yeah, we are thinking about deprecating the old functions, but we won't do that immediately. But we're thinking about doing it for the slashing release. So this is kind of preparing everyone for kind of a gradual switchover period to operator sets. That's it. So basically, like, if your AVS is live, you will probably want to migrate over to tracking operators in terms of operator sets in the core protocol, but this isn't a breaking change release, so you don't have to do it immediately. If your AVS isn't live, you probably will want to just start using these entry points from the start. And then for UI display of operator sets, we're gonna need an additional change to the AVS metadata. And so I'm gonna talk through that now. But basically this is the same AVS metadata that if you're on a testnet or mainnet and displaying in the UI, you already have this. If you want your operator sets to display in the UI, we have a new operator sets field, which will basically just have information for our UI to parse and display information about the different operator sets in your AVS. And so it's mainly around human readable information. So you can name the set. So it could be based on the token or like the task that is being performed. We also thought that it might be important to provide some discoverability around the different operator sets that might be performing different tasks, which actual software of your like node software that you want them to be running within that operator set, and then also the strategies that you're going to be rewarding operators for being in that operator set for. And then with that rewards topic, I'm going to switch over to let Yash take over.
Cool, thanks, Stephen. Yeah, so as part of the operator set release, we're also going to be upgrading rewards. Rewards contract currently is live on mainnet, and we want to add like a couple of key features to rewards as part of this release. The first that affects AVSs, but I would say more so affects operators, is variable operator commissions. Currently, operators get a fixed 10% commission on all rewards sent by AVSs. And so with variable operator commissions, operators can set whatever commission they want for a given reward type for a given operator set. And I'll get to those 2 points a little bit later. The other key thing about variable operator commissions is that they're not instantaneous. They're run on a delay. So operators can't really capriciously set fees for their commissions. The second is introducing what we call reward types. So currently, there's just a single way to make reward payments, and that's via delegated stake. As part of this release, we are codifying reward types. And so the very first and the current reward type that we plan on supporting within this release is a reward type for delegated stake. What that means is it's very similar to the reward type that's in the current rewards coordinator, except that this reward type is for delegated stake on a given operator set. And so, Stephen, if you can go to the next slide real quick. The way you interact with making rewards for operator sets would be specifying the operator set and the reward type. Yeah, Stephen, can you go back to the previous slide? Sorry. Yeah. So as I said, there's currently only a single reward type, and that is for delegated stake. That's what we're planning so far in this release. What we really want feedback on, and I believe some of y'all have given feedback in previous calls and in async forums, is we want to figure out what are the other reward types that make sense for your AVS. As I said, there's only delegated stake, but potentially we would be open to building reward types if building out new reward types if it makes sense for you guys to reward stakers and operators accordingly. And we can get to that feedback and Q&A session on reward types at the end of this, at the end of the presentation. Lastly, legacy rewards. So essentially the old reward types where you're just paying out to all stakers and operators of your AVS, irrespective of operator set. Like the M2 based registration and deregistration, we're planning on deprecating this by the slashing release. So it's our plan of planned obsolescence of non-operator set interaction by AVSs with our core contracts. Scott, go ahead. I don't know if we can hear you or if that was a mistake.
Yep, my bad.
All right.
Sorry. When you say deprecating, you mean, in the polite form where we label it that maybe there's something better to use, but we're not going to break it, correct?
By deprecating, we mean removing the functionality to call the old reward functions, which cannot be needed once operator set migration has been completed.
Okay, we'll talk.
All right, next slide. Yeah, and so this is what the rewards API looks like. Again, there's an entry point for operators directly now within this contract because they can set operator commissions on a per operator set per reward type basis. And then secondly, you have your vanilla reward operator set for range, and that struct essentially specifies the reward type and your strategies and multipliers that are currently in the operator set, or currently in the rewards API. Next slide, please. Cool. And so how we're thinking about meeting the future needs of AVSs. I think what the operator set really unlocks are a couple of key things. The first is enshrining quorums, or as we call operator sets in core, which a lot of you guys have currently been using in your AVS contracts, but there's no core representation of this state. And so bringing that into the core protocol enables rewards and also enables sort of more task-based representation of operators in the core protocol. The third bullet point that I think is potentially interesting for you guys is the meta AVS bullet point, where with the operator set release, since we're enshrining operator sets in core, and since we've updated the metadata URI schema, meta AVSs have a much easier way of being able to display their data. Yeah, Nima, go ahead.
Can you just do a brief TLDR of what a meta AVS is and how you think about it?
Yeah, for sure. So the way I would think about I would say actually the best example of a meta AVS that we have currently is AltLayer. So what AltLayer does as a meta AVS is they essentially run rollups for a bunch of different services. And so each quorum is a different AVS consumer of AltLayer. And so by meta AVS is what we mean is like you have one base AVS, and then you potentially have different quorums on top of your base AVS that are servicing a different customer. And so you can see this currently on the UI where you have, some AVSs are X AVS for Y consumer, essentially. If anyone else has any other ways to describe meta AVS, Stephen, feel free to butt in there. And yeah, lastly, more granular control over rewards calculations, which we've talked about in previous slides. Cool. What's in progress? Again, we really want feedback on the feature. We really want feedback on rewards for this feature. The operator set registration deregistration is pretty set in stone. Again, welcome feedback there. But I think what we really want to hear you guys' thoughts on are rewards, because we want to build the best possible rewards experience. Outside of that, the current development cycle, we got to go through audits. We have to update the rewards calculation. And then, like we said earlier, this is a release in preparation for slashing. Yeah, next slide. Again, yeah, roadmap. Again, this is part of the iterative building process that we're doing here. And it's just the first step on our road to slashing. Yeah, next slide. Cool. I think what you guys are probably more interested here is how our operator sets can be used in the future. And so the reason why we're talking about this as being a precursor to slashing is that within the slashing release, the way that we are planning on having AVSs slash operators is at the granularity of operator sets. And so we expect the way that AVSs wouldn't interact with the core protocol is to say, hey, I'm going to slash this operator who's part of this operator set to create their slashing requests. And again, we also think operator sets, along with a future release of potentially permissionless strategy, enables really cool things with objective slashing and unique security for like your own specific token in your quorum. Yeah, I think there's one more slide, Stephen, or that's it.
Nope, that was it. So yeah, with that, we can open it up for Q&A and some discussion. Scott.
Hey, I just want to add one thing. Great job, folks. And we'll open this up to questions. One way that I like to think about operator sets is how you organize all of the tasks or risk pools or strategies amongst your AVS. So if you have multiple quorums, you're likely going to want those one-to-one to operator sets, and you can focus your strategies and your payments and your slashing conditions based on that, and then operators can opt into their risk based on each operator set. So it even gives you more ingresses for operators to sign up to run a portion of your service than just registering for your AVS and then being susceptible to all of it. So some of the questions that you might want to consider, I know that we've had a lot of focus on payments, but definitely ask questions if you have about the space between, say, quorums, task management, and operator sets as well.
Just one question. How do we do the migration from the current version to the operator set? Let's say today I have one quorum. Does operator need to opt in to the operator set, or as an AVS operator, we can help the user to say during the migration, all these AVS operator in this quorum will be automatically part of this particular operator set?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the way, and Stephen, feel free to jump in because I know you've worked on the migration functionality on the AVS side. The way that we have it currently is that as an AVS, you must opt in to being an operator set AVS, and then once you do so, you are able to migrate any of the operators that are currently registered to you to any operator sets that you have defined in the core protocol.
Okay, got it. A second question is about different operator set. Let's say I have 5 operator set, and each of the operator set has a different class, and basically all except, let's say, stake ETH as the token, the restake token. So does that means that I, as a AVS operator, I can use just one? Let's say I have one stake ETH, I restake to my AVS and go up into all 5 operator set. Does that means that my 1 ETH automatically become like a TVL of 5 ETH per se?
So I would say that's more of a TVL calculation question.
Yeah.
And so the way that we would display the TVL on the UI is we would say that it's 1 ETH of TVL, because that's the whole thing. That's the unit that the operator is bringing in. However, if you were to display the TVL of each operator set would have 1 ETH of TVL.
Got it.
Ishmael.
Thanks, guys. Quick question. I just want to make sure I'm properly understanding this. An operator can opt into multiple operator sets simultaneously. So if you have a design, for example, where you have, let's say, a light node and a full node, and the full node encompasses the task of the light node, they would opt into, for example, the full node in that context, if it encompasses already another one. Or would you, in theory, suggest that we have 2 sets of conditions, for example, like full and light, where the full is just the non-overlapping component with the other set? So you opt into 2 ideally, or opt into 1?
It might depend on the implementation decision. I think is up to you.
Yep.
And it will be about how you want to allocate your operators and your pools, right? Like if you want one to do task A and B and another one to do only task B,
Yes.
is there a little bit of redundancy there? I don't know. It depends. I would have like execution and consensus would be like kind of the 2, right? Or maybe you have 2 quorums, 2 operator sets that are doing the exact same task, but they take different payments and they have different strategies. Maybe you're securing with Eigen and ETH, and you want both of the output of those quorums to match, as an example. So a lot of it depends on the inner workings of your AVS, and that's why I'm really interested in how you guys are going to take this concept and work with it. So I didn't answer your question, but
no, it actually made total sense. That was my question exactly. The only thing I wanted to add was, from a gas standpoint, is it more efficient to opt into fewer operator sets, or is it handled primarily off-chain in the logic? Okay.
Yeah, it'll be linear.
Awesome.
So if you want your operators to sign up to 12 operator sets, like, yeah, maybe not.
Awesome.
The one implication of that, Ismail, is each of these operator sets will likely have different advertised slashing conditions.
Yes.
So for instance, one might only, maybe the only thing you can do wrong in this operator set is double sign, right? Maybe over here, because you're running GPUs or something, like liveness matters a lot, or, SLAs or something like that. And so then that gives you the ability to price that risk separately. So, you don't have to pay the double signing people at the rate you would liveness. And so you can attract stake more marginally that way.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
You?
Hey, I just want to know how will the rewards be calculated within a specific operator set. So once the feature is available, so is it similar to the current way? For example, the operator will get 20% of the rewards, and then the others will be distributed according to distributed to the stakers according to their stake amount.
Yeah, so for the given reward type, which is delegated stake that we're planning on releasing, the calculation remains the same as it was previously. Again, operators receive rewards based off their proportion of the total delegated stake, and the stakers receive their reward based off of how much of the operator's delegated stake they make up. The only caveat now is that since we have variable operator commissions, that fee that the operator gets is not at a fixed 10%. So that's the only main change in the rewards calculation.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
Yeah, go ahead, Pankaj.
To work with different operator reward types, so outside delegated delegation based rewards, right? Because again, if we are talking about task based rewards, even within one operator set, would we have to kind of go via you guys to add it in the protocol, or we can add a reward type ourselves?
Yeah, so for adding reward types, that would have to be added by us because the rewards calculation is currently done by us. So if there is some sort of like task-based reward type that makes sense for you guys, we would love to hear like what a specification for that would look like that makes sense.
Sounds good. Whom should we reach out to for that? I think because that will be more involved discussion, right?
Yeah, for sure. You can reach out to me, Nima, Scott within the AVS working group channel.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Gotcha. Thanks. Yeah. Just one more thing. So the percentage cut that the operator takes, is it completely decided by the operator too? Sorry about.
Yep, completely decided by the operator, and they can they can set it to being any value that they want.
Okay. And the delay, do you guys have any kind of estimated delay that you'll add between this change that an operator triggers?
Yeah, so right now the delay is 1 week. It corresponds with the current withdrawal delay for stakers. And so theoretically, like stakers can sort of, if they see that operator raises commissions, they would opt out of the operator and then go to a new one.
Gotcha. Thanks.
When you opt into operator set, again, your risk take is a all or nothing basis. Are you considering to make it more granular? Let's say, for example, operator set involve slashing for a certain condition that might be more risky, and operator might only want to, let's say, opt in 70% rather than 100% of their risk take. Are you considering that route?
Yeah, it's a really good question. For our slashing release, yeah, 100%. We're going to make, our plan is to make it configurable for how much stake can be subject to slashing, and an operator can decide that.
So not 100% when you're saying that. It's like, it's not 100% across, but it's like you can portion out across different operator sets. That's how it's there. That's how the slashing release designs are kind of at right now.
Okay, got it.
And just to extend that, you'll be able to set these parameters not only per operator set, but also per strategy. And so if you want to ask yourself, like, what's the price of economic security for this slashing condition? It's going to be, on one end, are like the rewards going to the operators and the stakers destined for that operator set and those strategies. That's like the revenue. And then the risk that you're taking on the slashing condition is just kind of like known. And then each operator is opting in certain amounts of slashable stake to that to take on that risk and to take their relative slashable stake portions of the rewards. And so what you end up getting is a marketplace, a two-sided marketplace of like slashable stake and rewards. And that happens at the operator set level. So you do want to kind of think about it that way, like how much rewards are there? How much slashable stake am I putting up? How much risk reward am I taking? And so what actually kind of comes out of that each operator set is a price for economic security. It actually is an oracle if you want to think about it that way.
Got it. This is interesting.
And to add on to that, you'll have another good to price, right? Which is slashable stake. And so with the slashing release, we will presumably add another reward type to pay for amount of stake that is slashable and not just delegated.
Got it.
So to follow up a question, what's the difference between slashable stake and delegated one?
Yeah, great question. So currently, with operator set release, there is no difference because slashing isn't live. However, once we get to the slashing release, the difference between slashable and delegated stake is that slashable stake is the amount of stake that the AVS can slash of an operator. Delegated stake is purely the, you can think of it in two ways, but the way we're thinking about it right now is the non-slashable stake that the operator has opted into the AVS with. Hopefully that answered your question. Ismail.
And so regarding the slashable stake, can multiple AVSs in theory have the capacity to slash the same, let's say, ETH? Or is this additive where the max slashable stake that an operator can have is their total stake?
Yeah, you're hitting the right questions here. So our and we're giving some alpha away too, but our the current plan with slashable stake is that it's unique per AVS. So like AVS A cannot slash the exact same stake as AVS B. It's all compartmentalized across the AVSs. So you can think of each set of slashable stake as unique to the AVS.
That's interesting. And in terms of it being slashable, is it attributed to the operator of default still? So a single operator will be slashable for a single AVS in theory for part of their set. Okay.
Single operator for single operator set.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So if there's a slashing event within an operator set, that one operator is at fault, the stake isn't evenly distributed because the slash isn't evenly distributed across the set. It's located to the operator. Okay. Who misbehaved. Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, and we're coming out with more documentation and plans for how we're gonna position the slashing release, because like as you have clearly found out, it's sort of a slight departure for how we've been communicating things in the past.
Keep it secret for
now.
As we record this.
Yeah, go ahead, Pankaj.
Just curious on that. Does that mean from the staker side, will they get to opt into which operator set their stake is and a part of? So since the slashable stake is being shared across AVSs, I mean distributed, not shared. So does a staker get to choose which piece their particular stake goes to?
So yeah, the delegation model remains the same in that, you know, stakers choose their operators and they choose their operator based off the risk tolerance that the operator has, right? So if you're, you know, if you are fine with your capital being in a risky position, you're okay with opting into an operator that has high slashable stake and whatnot. But if you're more of a risk-averse staker, you would presumably delegate to a different operator that meets your preferences.
Okay, so the staker and the AVS basically still don't directly interact, right? It's completely left to the operator.
Yeah, it's the relationship stays the same. Staker decides the operator, operator decides the AVS.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Yeah, Clement, go ahead.
Cool. Just to leap off that a little bit, just wondering if there are any plans on allowing a single wallet to have delegation to multiple operators so that they can sort of have a portfolio of investments that with varying risk, as opposed to an all or nothing operator or like a multi-wallet setup. Could they do it with a single wallet and manage their risk all in one wallet?
Yeah, it's a good question. We've been thinking about this internally a lot. We don't really have anything to share yet on it. It's just that we've gotten this feedback many times, and we're really aware of it. And we're thinking of solutions to making not only like this portfolio delegation, I guess you'd say portfolio delegation use case a little bit more frictionless, but also enabling in the long run, like not having operators to replicate infra on a per AVS basis. Like those are two key feedbacks that we've seen on the staker side and the operator side for this. And right now there isn't anything concrete decided, but we hear you loudly.
Cool. I guess that's good at this stage.
Iteration is key.
Yeah.
We went down every single rabbit hole in that problem space over the last few weeks. Yes, is right to be coy. More to come.
Awesome.
Any other thoughts on like reward types? Like, you know, does the current delegated stake reward type on an operator set basis fit you guys' needs? Would you guys use the rewards protocol with operator set based rewards? Do you guys need anything else? I know Pankaj talked about more task granular based rewards, but again, really want any comments, good or bad, on what we're planning for rewards protocol. Then Ismail, go ahead.
Yeah. So to Scott's question about variable operator commissions, for us, we need performance-based payments. I think the conversation before and some of the ideas around that were either directly able to trigger that within Airflow in the payment rollup that you guys have, or to be able to write a route on chain that that you guys could then pick up and use. I think either of those two flows would work for us. I like the idea, and for us, it's actually very, very helpful to have these operator sets. Frankly, it's something that we would need to be able to stratify out within our infrastructure different task requirements across different groups. And then we can obviously, I would assume, within whatever the connection we have is either with Airflow or with writing a route, be able to further stratify into the operator sets within what we write there. But so it feels like it's a very useful step and a very helpful step to us in kind of the direction of the payment flow. That's kind of an additive thing on top of hopefully the performance-based payments.
And when we say performance-based payments, I asked you specifically, Ismail, because I remember this use case being relatively tough.
Yeah.
You basically want to pay some level of micropayment per discrete piece of work. Is that correct?
We can sum it over an interval, so it's not a micropayment.
Okay, but like conceivably, like theoretically, you'd be paying somebody for a discrete piece of work.
We'd be paying somebody based on what they have done. So I'd say like it could be discrete work in our case of generating a proof, or in the case of a consensus, it would be proposing a block.
Okay, fair, but it would be like per event.
Yeah, it would be per some actionable accomplishment that was done.
Right, and like things like publishing a block, you could probably, unless you're Bitcoin on a bad day, determine how many times that would happen. But specifically for Lagrange, it's some of that work is demand based, right? Which is where the variable payments kind of come into play.
So for us, it is demand based, but still even in the like block proposal example, like our state committees would have this issue too. We would need to know who has actually signed something or who has attested to something to reward operators who've constructively participated, instead of rewarding stakers for operators who might have been non-live. I think our belief is that there's like, you have implicit, by sanctioning against rewards, by just not paying someone who doesn't contribute, you can effectively slash what is the risk-free rate on the capital and impose a penalty on them without actually harming the principal. And I think that's something that we actually lose by not being able to do performance-based payments. And I think that's a somewhat powerful primitive in a lot of kind of consensus or economic or mechanism designs that our design kind of has as a requirement.
And so you would rather withhold payments for work not done than slash?
Yes, because attributable work payments, Brandon called it. I think we talked about performance-based payments, another example of this. But I think for some things, if work isn't done, slashing wouldn't be the correct thing. You would just want to not pay the person.
Good enough for Solana. Analog
True.
Cosmos. Yeah.
Near, Aptos, Sui.
Yeah, I share the same opinion as Ismail. I was thinking that let's say you have an operator set, you have a list of operators, you know the performance. Maybe some perform 100%, some perform 70%. Can we assign a weight to each operator in the operator set? Then we distribute the rewards based on the weights. So in this case, let's say if it perform 100%, you give it 100%. If it does nothing, a lazy operator that goes offline, then potentially we just put a weight of 0.
I see. So you would want to be able to like say, okay, after this week's worth of work, these are the lists of scores for all of my operators, irrespective of their stake, and I want to, pay each operator X amount depending on their performance score for the last week or so.
Yes, sort of.
Okay.
We need to compile all these user stories and then figure out where the commonalities are between them, so we can get to a small number of payment types essentially that hit like as many of these as possible. Because just from listening in, it sounds like there's a lot of like congruency between these, and so I wonder if some general principles could be identified that would allow us to do this with one payment type and not 20.
Yeah, go ahead.
Cool. Just to follow on, I guess, on the attributable work payments. Would there be a risk where, like, let's say you have an operator with a significantly lower stake, but is performing incredibly well, getting rewarded getting most of the rewards, and disincentivizing people to restake more and reducing like crypto economic security?
The way I think about this is that the amount of stake that is delegated to an operator provides a useful, ceiling for how much work can be delegated to that operator if you want to maintain at least a certain security ratio in terms of work per unit stake. But payments, that just sets the amount of work that's being distributed. But a world where payments are entirely contingent on like attributable work completed makes a lot of sense to me. So if you are an AVS and you're allocating a huge amount of work to somebody with no stake, that it sounds like an AVS architecture kind of level problem, where you'd want to have some constraints on how much work somebody gets. But that's how I've been thinking about it, at least.
Cool. Yeah, I think that makes sense. Yeah, it doesn't make sense to put a bunch of tasks into an operator with almost no stake.
Any other questions, comments, requests? I jumped in here a little late.
Yeah, we got a hand.
Right. Yep, Dali here. So just a quick question on the operator set. How visible would it be on, for example, on the app page? Because I mean, maybe we should because we might want to do some kind of multi-tenant setup for AVS so that we can know, okay, this particular operator set is maybe for one of the customer or partner. So kind of the branding will be visible on the somewhere. It's related to the metadata actually.
Yeah, that's a good question. So currently, within our Staker UI, our plan for, and as it stands right now, obviously subject to change based on feedback, is that we're going to keep the display as is. We're not going to necessarily be displaying meta AVSs at the moment, but the TVL calculation would have to be updated based off of the operator set specifications. So to answer your question, that's not planned for this release in terms of updating the UI on a per operator set information. And yeah, to Scott's point, the UI at the moment is designed for stakers, right? Our primary user of the UI is the staker, and stakers really don't care about operator sets. Stakers care about the yield they're getting from an operator and which operators they can delegate to. And yeah, Scott put some more alpha in there, and that we're going to have a customer experience in the future for AVSs and operators where that information makes most sense to be.
Thanks. Super clear.
Cool. Any more questions?
Doesn't seem like it.
Yeah. All right. We can end early, Nima.
Well, awesome. You know where to reach us. Thanks everyone for showing up.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.